Hello, I'm Ebony Williams.
I'm Vern Cooper, and we interrupt this program to repeat ourselves.
To repeat ourselves. And by repeat ourselves, we mean to continue to talk about The Last of Us,
Yeah,
which is our favorite.
it doesn't take a lot of prompting to get us to talk about The
No,
Last of Us.
no, not at all.
Timely because, there's more information coming out about the second season upcoming, and also we did a deep dive last year, I think, feverishly into the the first season's episodes.
Yeah, so some of the things that we talked about, we got really in depth looking at each episode, talking about our respective fields, but also just like kind of nerding out over how much we love this show.
Yeah, there's a lot to like. It's a really intertextual kind of thing. It's based on a video game. It is shot in a lot of ways to replicate that feeling. It's also a little bit of a graphic novel to it. And then it's now that it's become this new medium, it has a new performance aspect to it as well. These actors get to do a different challenge than the actors in the film or the video game did.
So we've tried to do this before. We have tried to re-record our thoughts in this video format, and I think we kind of ran into this thing where we were rambling, and not really rambling, but we didn't have a focus. So for this episode, you chose a topic, I chose a topic, and we will kind of steer the conversation there. So then for this particular episode, we're looking specifically. So on my end, I chose family.
Yeah, I chose mentorship and learning, and I think we're both also going to hop in and out about the ways that it's structured and formed as television media.
So where do we start?
The first, I mean, are you wanting to do episode by episode or?
Let's see, episode by episode. Maybe pull out the meat and potatoes.
Why not?
Right.
So the starting from well, I think a starting place is the fact that we have that this is an adaptation, and adaptations are unique in how in the challenges they bring to performance, to storytelling, and to setting. It's very difficult to replicate what was present in another medium, but luckily, video games. This video game in particular was very visual, but the lengths to which they went in this, especially in the first episode, to make it very clear that this is going to be an attempt at a faithful adaptation. It was staggering to me as someone who had seen the video game and played the video game. Like, this first episode was almost shot for shot.
hmm So one of the things that's striking to me is that scene where um, Joel, Tommy, and Sarah are leaving. So they're trying to get on the highway. And when they are in the city, it looks like a downtown area,
Hmm.
heavily populated with people. And just them trying to get away, that felt like what a video game, like what it's like to be a driver behind the wheel of a video game.
And the way it's played, at least in story mode in the video game, is we are Sarah in the back seat, and any toggling we do with the controller just looks around at different things as Joel and Tommy, their conversation happens in the background about, we got to get out of here. We can't go east. We got to go west, stuff like that. It's very much drink in the world, right? It's experience things. It's about being a passenger at the beginning and just seeing things unfold. At that beginning, also, I think, as as a family unit and also as a like Joel as a leader, they start out very non-standard. Even before everything goes wrong and it's Joel's birthday and Tommy comes over, they're a family, but they're a really non-standard family.
And what do you mean by non-standard?
Well, there's no mother figure. Joel and Tommy are brothers. Tommy comes over and is almost like another child to Joel. He's certainly not someone who is seen as capable of taking care of children.
like a co-parent, so to speak,
Yeah,
not
so
seen as a
he's
co-parent.
absolutely, he's more like another child for Joel, and Joel is their mentor, leader, or whatever. But he's also kind of like a big adult himself. It's really Sarah who does a lot of the norming for expectations for the household, right? Like be home by this time. We're gonna have this for breakfast, stuff like that. That all breaks down when the stuff with the neighbors happens and they have to flee the city. Sarah is now lost. She doesn't have the skills for this new world. And just so happens that Joel does, and Tommy does to a certain extent as long as he has Joel.
And I think that that's a great point. In the podcast that we did, we talked about how from the beginning we see how Joel is as a father, how loving he is, how much he appreciates and adores Sarah, but then also trusts her. He trusts her to be able to navigate and function and do things on her own. She has a certain level of autonomy
Mm-hmm.
that I think, going back to what you said about her kind of serving in like a caregiving role, I think that part of that is the trust, the confidence that Joel has in her. Um, as his daughter, I've given you these boundaries. I know that you're going to stay within these boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the world had continued the way it was, Sarah was going to kick its ass.
Sarah was going to kick his ass.
She
She
was going to
was.
be great. He had prepared her, and in his own way, Tommy had contributed. That's kind of a reality check for, you know, he's not a co-parent, but he's there as someone who can also. There's a moment in the kitchen where he and Sarah sort of exchange looks about a thing that Joel is committing to that he may not be able to do, and he's in over his head, and we got to take care of Joel and stuff like that. Sarah was going to be a really stable, and I think, what's the word? There's a word, well adjusted.
Yeah, very well adjusted. One of the comments that they make, so in the background in this scene where they're in the kitchen, around the table, Sarah and Joel are around a table, Tommy is standing by the refrigerator, and they hear what's going on in Jakarta on the radio. And they say, "What's Jakarta? Is it a country?" And then Sarah answers, and Tommy is like, "There's hope for us yet."
Yeah, right.
So I think, that further points to, if life continued the way it was, Sarah was going to be something awesome.
Hmm. And it's very important too that this moment is in 2003, which was a very important, I won't say year, we can't pinpoint it to the year, but a very important moment in globalization, in the forces that connected the world. 2003 was the year we invented Wi-Fi. It was, the cell phone that Joel has is one of those like brick Nokias. In 5 years there would have been smartphones, and then the mention of Jakarta and the interconnectivity, like the just so happened that in this universe or this version of the world, it was disease that tapped into the interconnectivity before we were able to.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
it's also, it's sort of an allusion to, at any moment things could get out of hand. And this world is kind of a mini worlds theory thing. I wouldn't go that deep into it, but this particular time in our history is where it diverges into, there is no more evolution after that. And the world has never advanced to, it's hard for us to see things from their perspective when it becomes 2023, because we're still viewing it from us who have benefited from the past 20 years of evolution of technology, of interconnectivity, furthering education. But the cordyceps got there first in this world.
The cordyceps got there first. So one thing that I'm thinking about is, and this isn't one of our things, but thinking about how in this universe, the Last of Us universe, life as we knew it stopped at 2003. So just thinking about music and the role that music plays in this show. So there's a poster of Destiny's Child
Mm-hmm.
up in Sarah's bedroom. She's wearing a shirt, and you confirm that the shirt is from the same band that she wore in the video game,
Hmm.
but it's
Yeah.
a fictional band.
Yeah.
But then also like um as we get to know Ellie, like looking at the music that she has,
Yeah.
just thinking about like music is something that we create when we're at a certain place, like when we can enjoy beauty and art. And I don't know that in this world we're there yet. We get there when we see Bill and Frank, but everybody else is just trying to survive. I can't make music, I can't make art when I'm trying to
Right. Yeah.
survive, you know?
Yeah. The only there's a reason why the places that the art, from like our history is caves and stuff, because that's where we were safe. Cave paintings and things is because we could control that space. We were there as a group and we had time on our hands. You don't have time on your hands if you're running from cordyceps. Something else is that music and art are culture, and is culture has a very broad definition. So culture, for one, from our perspective as humans, culture is this group of people share these things, these ideas, these values, these beliefs, and so they produce this kind of art or whatever. Culture is also bacteria
Mm,
who spread simply by vicinity of one another, and having you've got some, all you need to let bacteria grow is some sugar and some water, and enough of them to hang out for a while, and you've got a culture of bacteria as well. So life looks a lot of different ways, and culture looks a
life,
lot of different ways.
it does. It really does. Okay, so let's talk about family. What were you going to say?
Well, actually, I think it was going to be related, so go ahead.
So, family. So, from the very beginning, we see what the family unit that kind of structures Joel's perspective looks like is Joel, Sarah, and Tommy. And, one of the things he says in, I was about to say chapter 4, episode 4 is you keep going for family.
Mm,
So I think that they do a good job from the beginning portraying that this was Joel's world. Sarah was the reason why literally he got out of bed in the morning
hmm.
because like she, she
She,
woke him up. You
yeah,
know, like
alarm.
literally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just thought of something too, like this. Even though Sarah's death occurred because the world went wrong, it could have occurred for any number of reasons, because sometimes people just die.
Right.
And what happened to the world around Joel is also could be seen as a representation of what grief feels like. If your world incorporates the presence of someone, and that someone is no longer there, that world goes weird on you. There's a kind of a dissonance, but
So I wanna get into that a little bit more because Sarah could have died anyway.
mhm.
She could have been bitten.
Yes,
She
she
could have
wasn't.
died in that car accident.
Hmm.
But the way she died was gun violence.
And not even friendly fire.
No, it was intentional.
Yes, exactly.
It was very
She was
intentional.
executed.
Hmm.
I hadn't
So
thought
then,
about that. That's
so how does that?
really.
And also thinking about all the things that they survive to get to the moment when she dies. Like they survive actually running from. They survive a car accident. They survive a flood of people. They survive running from an infected person.
They survived the neighbors.
Right.
Yeah,
To then be executed.
by the person who you're supposed to feel safe when you see them.
Right.
An
Supposed to protect
authority,
you.
right? An authority
Right.
figure. And that's something that is not true for a lot of folks in our society right now. A lot of people don't get to feel safe when they see police.
So it's very interesting to me. And then not only that, so looking at it from that perspective, again, it's intentional, right? It's very deeply woven to consider that this is how Sarah died. This marks Joel's view about family. So then when we get to that moment where Joel is protecting Ellie and Tess at the end of the episode
Mm-hmm.
from a perceived threat, then we see that PTSD.
Yeah.
We see that. I think we also see everything that Joel was carrying with him for the last 20 years. If
Yeah.
I would have acted quicker, I could have saved Sarah. Just thinking about all the ways in which he feels like he failed Sarah.
Yeah. That guy,
That,
the guy he beat to death was, I'm not going to say in the wrong place at the wrong time, but it was just really bad luck that he happened to be the one that discovered them, because it was it was a no-win scenario for everybody. Once he decided he was going to test Ellie.
yeah. So let's talk about that then. As we talk about film elements, the things that build this world. You and I comment every time we talk about this show how they realize how the showrunners, the show writers realize how intelligent we are.
Yeah.
So they show us rather than tell us so many things.
Yeah. Yeah. They give us plenty, to go
Mm-hmm.
off of. It's
Mm-hmm.
they're not like elitist, ha ha ha, put this together you can. They give us enough. For instance, in the opening scene after Sarah dies, we've got the little boy walking through the desert, the Badlands, and the guys working outside, the soldiers working outside, they were working on defenses or something. It looked like they went and got him, and they wheeled him in, and this woman is trying to reassure him, but she sounds like she's done this 1,000 times.
This is old hat.
Yeah. And so while she's saying, this is just to keep you safe, this is to keep you from falling over, this is, the camera is showing us these elements of information, right? Like the graphic that has the time to infection. If you're bitten on the neck, it's like, what was it, 2 minutes?
uh, I think 15 minutes to an hour. I'm not sure.
And then the longest it could take is 24 to 48 hours. And that's if you're bit
Yeah.
on the foot or something. And so that tells us a lot. And then the whole time she's talking to this child, the guy behind her, the other soldier, just quick, she says, "Oh, it's going to be a little poke," and he pokes and takes the blood or something, and then just flashes it to her. It wasn't even, they didn't zoom in or anything, just flash the red, and that was it. She barely reacts and said, "Okay, we're going to give you a whole bunch of food, and you're going to be happy, and it's going to be great." And then they kill him.
Right. Right. And you know what? That speaks to the mundaneness of this world, right?
Right, the quotidian,
right, and we see that again
over and
regarding
over.
this. Yes, yes, but
Yeah,
I'm thinking particularly as we think about this child. So
yeah,
we then see after they inject the child with whatever it is they inject him with, we go to another scene and we see individuals putting bodies into a fire.
hmm,
And we see a woman go to a truck, another truck comes in, a woman goes to the truck and looks, and we see from the shoes that it's the same child we were
yeah.
just introduced to.
Yeah, these very distinct looking shoes, and they're very 2003,
Yeah.
which is funny because that was not that boy's shoes. He wasn't alive back then, and so somebody had kept those shoes. And that was what struck me, was like that had been somebody's shoes before the world turned. So somewhere out there was that boy's parent or something like that.
Or maybe, or also we know that people were looting. People were going to stores. So, like going back
Yeah,
to episode, I keep wanting to say chapter, episode 7, when Ellie and
Riley.
Riley are having a conversation about what people needed when the world turned.
Yeah.
So she says sneakers and not that shit, which was like lingerie and stuff. Um,
Somebody took it.
right. Somebody's.
The apocalypse is always somebody's thing. They out there. We can't lie. There's a really incredible scene in Zack Snyder's remake of George Romero's Day of the Dead. Wait, no, sorry, Dawn of the Dead. It was Dawn of the Dead, where they
Okay.
get stuck in the shopping mall, and it's just a montage of everybody going around finding the weird stuff in the shopping mall and playing with it because that's what they did. But yeah, again, when you're running for your life, there are things you go for and there are things you don't go for. And it's not the lingerie, it's not the guitar, it's not the paint set, it's shoes, jackets, guns, what have you.
Yeah. So then, I mean, and we also know that it's something that people did. Joel was a smuggler.
Yeah,
He went to different places. Bill went to different places, got things people needed.
yeah. Bill, he built a kingdom.
He did. I was thinking Empire, Kingdom, Empire,
He,
all the same.
and for Bill, as somebody who was a kind of a prepper guy, he already had a pretty good head start.
Yeah, he did.
But again, that's something. The relationship of Bill and Joel is one of sort of. I'm not going to say co-parenting. Their relationship is a mentoring relationship.
It is. I would
Hardly
agree.
anything actually joins them together, right? They don't have much in common at all. And this is a point that Joel makes, I think, to Bill, is that like we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for these folks, right? I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
Right. Right. I don't. So one of the things that I'm thinking about is that scene, episode 3, where Joel is reading the note, and the note from Bill, and the note says, I needed to protect one person, and that was my job, and I
Yeah.
did it. And he also said that to Frank. You know, you were my purpose, and I am okay not being here anymore if you're not here anymore. So thinking about it that way, like these are two people. And also Frank and Ellie kind of wandered, like stumbled, literally stumbled into their lives.
Yeah.
You know, Ellie had a little help stumbling. Joel pushed her.
What do you think that what do you think that was like for Ellie reading that note? She didn't know the things we knew or the things that Joel knew. And so what she has to go on is what the house looks like, what the note says, and Joel's reaction.
Um, I would think for Ellie that all of this is unnerving. So let me go back to something. I want to put a pin in that because I have been wanting to talk to you about this for so long. So, The Last of Us has become one of my comfort shows, so I watch it. So there was episode 2. You and I on the podcast talked about how episode 2, we start off, we see Ellie in a fetal position, and we pan out and there's all this nature around her. So then what I notice as I continue to go back and watch it again is that by the end of the episode, Ellie is still surrounded by all of this nature and she's standing on her 2 feet. And for me to go from the beginning of she's being born into this new world to now she's like gone through another loss and kind of been introduced to the reality of what the world outside of the QZ looks like. I would say that that's a lot of learning,
Hmm.
and maybe from the course from when she meets Joel and Tess to when they leave Bill and Frank's. That's what, maybe 3 days, maybe
Yeah, it's not
3
long.
days,
Yeah.
not long at all. But all the things that she has learned and experienced within that time, I would find that untethering, right?
Yeah,
Like
disorienting.
disorienting.
I think you're right. And even like she's been at Marlene's
Mark.
for 3 weeks after. So Ellie is experiencing an accelerated development timeline. Like her time in the Fedra is almost like gestational. Nothing happens
Mhm,
to her.
mhm,
She she is not even she's not experiencing things. All she can come up with to do is to get in trouble just to feel something. The first time she experiences something is when she goes to the mall with Riley and
mhm.
she dies
Right.
there. And then is sort of brought back to where we meet her. So this is the place we meet her. So this is almost like a birth. She I think the piece about her being in the fetal position and then being born out into the world outside the QZ is like, this is in the same way that Sarah died when her world ended. Ellie is born into her world when she leaves the QZ, because Ellie was not made for life inside the QZ. She always had to go out there, and always had to be Joel who took her.
Mm. I mean, but even thinking about the parallel there, when Sarah leaves, Joel is with her. When Ellie enters, Joel is with her.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to unpack that a little bit more. I have to unpack it.
Well, and it's a there's the fact of the matter is too is that even, well, like what we spoke about with Sarah, she could have died a number of ways. Ellie could have happened a number of ways.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different people Ellie could have been. There's a lot of different ways the show could have explored immunity, but the way the show, or the way the story explored immunity, was through birth. It was through birthing. It was the life cycle. And so over and
Mm-hmm.
over again, this narrative is about life. Like, it's, what's the word? Fragility, and its flexibility. Things that you think are going to wipe you out, you can spring back from. But it's like just the normal shit, right? Slipping on a banana peel.
Right. So family broadly, parenting specifically. And I think about that because when we did the podcast, I also did this um kind of little miniature episode where I talked about Erickson's theory of development and where Joel fell in that. And one of the things that I talked about there was non-normative events and non-normative event. So for parents, losing a child is a non-normative
Mm-hmm.
event.
Right.
Children are expected to outlive their parents. So then this whole apocalypse is a non-normative event in itself. Everybody is going through it at the same
Yeah.
time. Also, parents are losing their children.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another non-normative event going on. So, as I think about that and think about parenting, just because Joel lost Sarah, he didn't lose his ability to parent. He didn't lose the things that he learned
Mm-hmm.
while being a parent. And I think that those things translate to his relationship with Ellie. They
Right.
translate to his other relationships with Bill and Tess as well, but in different ways.
When he didn't stop learning either. He just paused the parenting, and then he grew into this world and absorbed all the knowledge from it, so that he had become, the perfect parent, or mentor for someone like Ellie, who had a personality and a destiny like she did. Nobody but Joel could have stood her, could have, withstood her, could have earned her trust, could have stuck with her that long. And we see her try to, they really butted heads a lot. And she was practically trying to drive him away at some points. She was really testing boundaries.
Because everybody leaves her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she needs to know if he's got what it takes sooner rather than later. The I was thinking about, like, her reading this note that Bill had left. It was all totally unfamiliar to her. The note, it was like she didn't know these people. She didn't know what their faces looked like. Nothing at all. We knew what she was talking about. Joel knew, but for her, the letter and the people in it didn't become real until they got to the part about Tess. And Ellie, she couldn't actually continue. She didn't continue reading after that, because in that moment, it was almost like when you're learning about something and you read about it and you study about it and you research it, it's never the same as when you see it in real life or when you do it for the first time.
Context.
Huh?
Right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tess was that link for Ellie. And I think a lot of, if we consider Bill and Frank's, the stop at Bill and Frank's, the last of her adolescence, she's now fully moving into young adulthood. That was that moment of, like, people that I know are going to know other people and they're going to die. And bad things not only happen in minutes, but in years.
Right. And as we tie all of that into the things that happen in episode 3, like we see compared to the other episodes, we see Joel and Ellie very little. But I think when we do see them, we see a lot and we learn about them.
Yeah.
So, like, thinking about development, thinking about where Ellie is in terms of adolescence, moving into early adulthood, we also have that moment with the tampons.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like you said in the podcast, it literally reminds us of development. We have seen development up until this point, but there's development, physical development going on. And not only going on, but the world stops. The way we evolve, the way we develop doesn't.
Hmm.
So, like,
Yeah. If species exists and hasn't evolved or changed in any way, it's still going to go through its cycles. And
right,
so that's another example of like this story always coming back to birthing and sort of this tension or exploration of the idea of reproduction versus contagion. Because off all the time when we tell these zombie stories, they're not reproducing, right? They're infected.
mhm.
We reproduce, they infect. But this show is leading towards something from a family context that explores what the cordyceps are. Like Ellie is something in between them, because her birthing process was interrupted by the cordyceps and she was infected or whatever. But that produced her immunity. Infection also made her immune. So this show is doing something very interesting from just a zombie story perspective of of raising the question of why we consider other to infect and ourselves to reproduce.
Also, I have a question around that too. So Ellie has something that, to our knowledge right now, nobody else has. Is the rest of the world deserving, or what's the word that I'm looking for? So we know that a part of what Marlene wants to do is create a vaccine using Ellie. So I think that that's at the end what Joel is Joel is deciding. Does she can she live her life being this other in some ways being a human who has been influenced by the cordyceps that gives her this immunity? She is she entitled to live her life, or is she destined?
Yeah. The question of, I don't know if it's fate. It's almost drawing allusions to Jesus and, the blood sacrifice religions like Christianity of like, if you have this gift, it's your obligation
It's your obligation
to
to
share it.
serve.
Yeah.
Yeah, to serve. Right.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I really, I know that question is going to come up a lot, especially that when Ellie, you know, I, I can't remember. Is Marlene dead?
At the end of the show, yeah, she
Okay.
is.
It's possible that Ellie will find out somehow that Joel made the decision for her, but I think she also kind of already knows.
I think she knows too.
Yeah.
I think she knows.
Because she's angry at him. So and I think too, like Joel will probably come clean about it. Just because
You know,
I don't know if their relationship can survive having that tension in it. So going back to I guess this idea of family and familiality, who is related to what, who is kin to who. Ellie's not really kin to anybody because she's human, but she's not human because she was exposed to the cordyceps. She has cordyceps in her and has not simply, she didn't have them when she got bit. She already had them. She'd had them since she was born. So she's not really a part of our society, but only she and Joel know that. Well, I think Tommy does now, right?
yeah, that's really fascinating. Like, if you're born with this gift, is your role then to serve the rest of the world, or is your role to live your life? And do you find a way to still serve that doesn't mean sacrificing yourself?
I think this is going to be the first time that we, along with Ellie, have to question Joel's judgment. We have to. I think that this second season and the story of the second game, if they're similar, is going to be is like them having to negotiate that massive like schism between the two of them, because he made the decision that she should be able to live her life, and she's gonna have to decide whether he's right about that or not, what she thinks about it.
What do you think about it? Is he right?
Yeah,
I agree. Totally agree.
it's and for to me though, it's not a moral question. His job was
Right.
to do what he did.
And he did it.
Yeah.
He did it. And
So
Marlene, you asked him to do it, and
yeah,
he did it beyond what you expected.
yeah, and you
And
don't
he
just clock out from fatherhood, not when you've committed to the level that he has. I
and
mean,
also he did what her mother wanted. Like when we meet her mom is like, find someone who will take care of her. And that's what Marlene did. She had her reasons,
yeah.
but basically her mom's dying wish is what happened for her.
And Marlene isn't evil or amoral or immoral for wanting what she wants. She has seen it all. Marlene has been there from the beginning, just like Joel has. And if Joel hadn't formed a bond with Ellie, he might have been fine to do what Marlene wanted to do. But not after she became his child.
Yeah.
You
If she
know,
was really just cargo, he
exactly.
would have been happy, like just passing her off.
Yeah, this is the guy who heartlessly threw the lifeless body of a child in a fire. He hasn't become a different person. He has become a father to this one particular kid. And it's his job to make sure that that particular kid is safe and gets every shot she can get at life and happiness, because that is a parent's job 100%. So if you convince him to take this job, that was your mistake. Like the moment that Marlene convinced Joel to take her, they became enemies.
Um, so as I watch the show again, I think like having a basic familiarity with the show, you start to see things that maybe you didn't see the first
Yeah.
time. One of the things that I'm noticing is in that scene in the beginning of the episode or the first episode, there is a butterfly in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like this butterfly on the window in the kitchen. It's like a decoration. It's
Hmm.
something I would imagine that Sarah put up.
Yeah.
And then when we go to Joel's house, his apartment in episode 1, we see another butterfly. So just thinking about like this idea of like the butterflies representing Sarah, but then there's this scene in that first episode, like after we've lost Sarah, we're in Boston, we're in his apartment, and you can see the. Can you hear me?
Hmm.
I just got a message that my connection was unstable. So you see the butterfly and you see Ellie, like, is behind Ellie.
Yeah.
So also there's kind of this idea of Joel can be what he is to Ellie because of what he experienced with Sarah.
Yeah. Well, and what do butterflies represent?
Change,
Change, evolution.
birth, resurrection.
They also represent migration. The monarch butterfly is a symbol of like Latinos in the United States because of its migration from Mexico to Canada and stuff. And so whenever you see like the flyers and stuff for Latino History Month, you'll see the monarch butterfly everywhere. So it's also about freedom of movement and the complexity and danger of that movement. Double-edged sword of it. And then the fireflies, they're, and I'm not going to try to make this metaphor work any harder, but there is a lot of nature symbolism in this show. And
So
the
much.
cordyceps, gosh, the first One we really truly see, which is the guy that Tess and Joel see melted into the wall when they're tracking down the battery, and Robert. It was beautiful. It was so
Gorgeous.
pretty
It's
and
so beautiful.
horrifying. It was so disturbing because it was just human enough for us to see the structure, but there was nothing human about it. And so, in a way, that's sort of the other version, I guess, of Ellie.
Hmm.
Ellie is cordyceps on the inside, but looks human on the outside.
Hmm. So, and I would also say I see her as still fully human. I mean, I don't know. Is she part cordyceps?
Yeah, yeah. That's what's like. That's the idea with the way they've set this bug up is that it's all or nothing. And so Ellie raises an interesting question of which comes first in that case. Like, she
I was about to say
bleeds,
the mushroom or the egg.
the mushroom and the egg, yeah. She bleeds, and it's red, it's human blood, right? She has a cycle, but she also has this fungus inside her, and it lives on her nervous system because that's where they try to take her brain out. Some part of her structure, I think we're led to believe it's her nervous system, is cordyceps. So she's human inside her, at the base of her is cordyceps somewhere. That was what I took away from the way that they were talking about the scans and stuff whenever they were going to cut her brain out, is that it's her that the cordyceps has become like her central nervous system. So she still has all of the other tissues that are human, like blood and vessels and skin and stuff like that. But the thing that makes her tick is cordyceps.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to watch the episode. I mean, the season again, thinking about with that in the background because I never thought of it that way. So okay, there's also something I wanted to say. I've been wanting to say this for a long time. So when we first, some shortly after we meet Joel in this new life, this new world, he sees this wall that says, "When you're in darkness, go towards the light." Is that what it is? When you're
Yeah.
in darkness, go towards seek the light. So he sees the full saying. When Ellie is in that room, she only sees half of it when in darkness. And for me, I also think about Joe has this full context
Mm-hmm.
of what it is to live inside the QZ. He know what it means to be in the open world right now.
Mm-hmm.
And Ellie doesn't have that full context. So as we talk about mentoring and teaching, I think that from Joe's experience, he's able to show her what that full context looks
Yeah,
like.
he's got to fill in the blanks for her.
Yeah, and she learns so much about the world through the current world in the show through her interactions, not just
Well,
conversations, but watching him.
learning is contagious as well. So something you talked about that has really stuck with me, and I've gone and read some more about it, is the zone of proximal um, learning. Is that what it's called?
Development,
Development.
zone of proximity. Yeah.
Yeah, development, which is very much almost like this contagiousness of learning, right? It's not as simple as monkey see, monkey do, but it is like children learn from watching their mentors or their elders that they look for up to, or anyone more capable. We learn skills at first. We begin to learn by watching and being near and then participating in. And there are other zombie films that have talked about what else is contagious. What parts of our culture are analogous to contagion? One of them, there's a movie called Pontypool that I really like. It's a super low budget Canadian film about the idea is that it's language that's the vector for the virus. And so if you hear someone talk that is infected, you'll pick up their infected speech and begin. It starts with echolalia and like just saying the same word or phrase or sound over and over and over again. So it's learning is also a disease in a way, depending on how you classify it. It is a contagion. It's not the same as, say, catching a virus because we do have to participate in some way. But with this zone of proximal development, it's almost like if Ellie, just like with cordyceps, already had that virus in her. She could have gone the rest of her life without knowing that. The only reason they know, or she finds out, and everybody else finds out, that is immune to cordyceps because she was exposed to it before she was born, is because she was bitten. Because she was out there doing dumb stuff and getting her heart broke and all that. I want to talk about Riley.
As you grab your heart.
Yeah. Yes. It's not quite the same, and it should. I want to ask your opinion on this. The stakes for like Ellie and Riley, that episode 7 versus episode 3, and Bill and Frank. Bill and Frank feel very close to us in a way that I don't think Riley really feels. Riley has, you know, May, December, summer after your senior year before you go to college kind of fling vibes to it. She's more than that, but I think that is kind of what she represents. But it's also a person who dies, which is a little bit different. I think it's a bit much to just dismiss her as that.
Right.
But we all learn of very important lessons from our first and disastrous love.
We do. We do. So also I would say that though Ellie was an accusee, she was a bit sheltered still,
Hmm.
right?
Very sheltered, I
And
think.
so she was a rebel, all of these things. And we know that they got out and they did stuff. They would go to the park, but she never did anything to the level of going to the mall that night. Which is the thing that kind of started all of this. Like, if she's not bitten, she doesn't know
Hmm.
that she's immune.
Well, also, I'm sorry. Were you?
Well, no, I was just going back to the whole idea about how Riley, how important she is to the story, because from the time we meet Ellie, we know she's holding something. She has a secret, and we know this from the beginning. Like that moment where Tess asked her if you were in the mall by yourself, and you can tell she's lying. You can tell she's not telling the full truth. And she was like, "Yeah." And then Tess was like, "Well, you got some balls on you, sister." We know that she's holding something from us,
Yeah,
and we don't learn what it is until episode 7. Joel doesn't learn what it is until after he saves her
yeah,
from death or whatever. So I think again, like Sarah is kind of always there for Joel. Riley is always there for Ellie. So I think it's really important to how she develops, but also how she experiences the world. Because so like when I think about episode 7, Ellie, Riley says to Ellie, "Do you trust me?" And she's like, "Yes," with my life apparently. Then, but looking at what we know now in episode 7, going back and looking at episode 3, when Joel, no, episode 5, when Joel is, they're in Kansas City, they're about to escape Kansas City, but there's somebody in the house who's shooting
yeah,
while Kathleen and her people come to get them. So, when Joel says, "I'm gonna go see what's going on," Ellie is afraid, doesn't want him to leave. Joel turns to her and say, "Do you trust me?" Like hearing that in episode 5, but not knowing the context of there was this other critical moment that really changed her life when she was with someone who asked them to trust her. But then kind of looking at that whole experience, for me it just highlights how much Riley is a part of how Ellie navigates this new life, this new world.
yeah. The first we hear of Riley is in the first episode because
Yeah.
Marlene sort of uses Riley against Ellie because Ellie's like, "You're a terrorist." And she says, "Well, was Riley a terrorist?" We have no idea who Riley is. So
Mm-mm.
it is up to these performers and these actors. It's up to Bella Ramsey to use like their physicality, their face, their air. Like they like sighed and sort of shrank and got very
Yeah.
sad to tell us that it doesn't matter that we don't know who Riley is. Maybe we'll find out later. But the important thing is that Riley was very meaningful was also a firefly and is gone.
Hmm.
I was also going to say that, like, Ellie, I don't know if she's really a rebel. I think she's acting out.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
I think,
Say more.
like, she is. So, like the terrible twos
Hmm.
with kids, they say that, like, my niece had a really rough time with terrible twos. She's 6 now, so she's a lot easier to be around. But she acted out so bad, and it's because she felt safe. You
Mm.
don't act out. Like, kids don't. The kids who are the most well behaved are terrified. They're scared of getting their bottom slapped, or having to sit in the corner, or not getting dinner or something like that, right? Like, those kids who are afraid of punitive measures are the ones who are the best behaved. The kids who are loved and encouraged and supported act out. I think Ellie feels, or is, safe where she's at. She's not comfortable. She's not having a good time, but she's not in fear of her life in the
Hmm.
Fedra orphanage,
Hmm.
which was the whole idea. And the first time she understands, I think that she's not. You remember the scene where she rushes at Joel and he just kind of boop, and she's on the ground, and he disarms her easily. He doesn't even use his hands; he uses his boot to disarm her. And the way she looks up at him, hi beef. The way she looks up at him, to me, she was like seeing for the first time someone who was dangerous.
Hmm. I'm gonna have to marinate on that because, like what you said about well-behaved children and children who feel safe, you know, immediately like the the family scientist in me, the person who, teaches cognitive development is thinking about how does parenting styles play in today, So I'm
How
gonna
does
have to
what?
throw the parenting styles.
Yeah.
So then in the podcast, again, we keep referencing this podcast, which 100% just
We
kind of
promise it exists, viewers.
we do. We
It lives
promise
in
it
Canada.
exists. It probably really does live in Canada. So we were talking about parenting styles and authoritative versus authoritarian. So, as you said that, it kind of made me think about that, like parenting style. I mean, but then also, like, if you look at Ellie, Joe allows Ellie to be Ellie.
Yeah.
Like, she curses.
Yeah.
She,
He doesn't fight her on the little things
no,
that don't matter, right?
no,
And
he
he has a
doesn't.
parenting style that she really responds to. Like, she doesn't act out as much anymore. Like, those moments of just disobedience for the sake of disobeying, they become far fewer and far, like, she hardly ever actually just does the opposite of what he says after a point.
So I feel like we can have this overview. So we've been talking for what,
An
almost an hour
hour,
now?
yeah.
So I think there are a couple of other things we need to talk about before we wrap up. And one of them is David. Like, we can't talk about Ellie and her learning and her development without talking about their interaction with David.
Well, how about we do it this way then?
Okay.
Because we've talked a little bit about what goes into making Joel and Ellie the unit that they are,
Hmm.
and their mentoring and their family. So why don't we just, like, stop here, and then the next episode is about the things that challenge that
Okay.
family, and then because we
Okay.
could kick it off with David and then Marlene and then all the decisions and stuff that they have to make.
Okay. That
So
sounds great.
because I think we have a lot more to say.
We have so much more.
So, yeah, I think I feel like we've done a better job of organizing our thoughts this time than any of the other
Hmm.
times we've tried to talk about the
Hmm.
show. And it's nice also just to be talking about it again. And also, I'm so excited for this next season.
Yeah. Do we know when it's coming out?
Uh, it'll
25?
be 2025, but I don't know. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be one of those summer releases. So probably looking at a year.
We should start to think about how we can live stream. Because I think about my reactions when I watch some things on TV and how I react and respond. And I think it would be really interesting to kind of have our like genuine
You know what we should
reactions.
do?
What's that?
We should play the game.
We should play the game. I would
Yeah,
love to play the
I've
game.
got it on my Xbox.
Okay.
Xbox. It's on the PlayStation. Okay, well, I'm feeling like that's a pretty good place to wrap that up. Then
Okay.
let's pick up next time with the folks who want to tear them down, the folks who want
Mm-hmm.
to tear Joel and Ellie down, and
Mm-hmm.
the legitimate challenges that they face.
Yeah. I think we should also counter that with the folks that built them up.
Mm-hmm.
Is Bill. Like, we
Yeah,
haven't even gotten into how Bill never met Ellie, but has such a profound,
absolutely.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So yeah, okay.
that
All right.
sounds good.
We got a good place to start.
Well, viewers and listeners and whoever else, those people who are psychically bonded to us via cordyceps, well, see you next time on We Interrupt This Program.